All right. So let me go and open up a new instance of Maya, because 3 is not enough. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with a plane, and we're just going to kind of build up something kind of fun here. So we'll do a plane and a sphere. So let's do polymodeling sphere. And then we'll go ahead and do a plane also. Okay. And for both of these, we'll go ahead and put on a shader, just a regular surface shader, and we'll go and turn on a light. Let's do a distant light. I will say, if you guys are using the IPR renderer or rendering from the viewport, probably don't rely on that, because because displacement maps need to be basically recomputed after every change, and so IPR renderer doesn't necessarily recompute those displacements. So you honestly would be better off just by doing a preview render whenever you want to check something. Okay. Alright, what color do you guys want?
Blue.
Go with, how about let's go in the middle, let's go with purple. It's like the worst of both worlds. You don't like purple?
I mean, that's like the missing texture color.
Yeah, that's what
Kind of brings it out.
Okay.
Make
But
it
you're
a
an
nice
old-
purple.
You.
I'll make it lemon yellow. Make it like a lilac.
Here you go.
Lemon yellow?
Oh,
Oh, that's
Sure,
disgusting.
it's not
No.
purple, that's the
Maybe
missing
sour.
texture.
We're gonna make it like bright fuchsia.
That's the missing texture color.
Exactly. It's okay. We're not going to use we're not really using a texture anyway, so you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
It won't show.
It's funny because you'll never know if it's purple or if it's actually not working.
That's ugly as hell. Oh, that's awful. Okay. Blue. Fine. Blue. All right. Beautiful. Baby blue. All right. What? What'd you say about Marinas? Oh, I need sleep. Oh, God, this morning was rough. I tell you. Don't ever have kids. All right, anyway. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up the Hypershade. And then we will go ahead and graph our network. I'm going to go hit tab, and I'm just going to start typing in DISP. And so we'll see Pixar Display Scalar Layer, Transform, Vector, and Pixar Displace. So we're actually going to be using a few of these. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the first one and just get Displace. And we're also going to go ahead and do Displace Transform right here. To make sure that this is connected properly. So I'm going to go and disconnect Pixar Displace 1. And then I'm going to reconnect out color to a displacement shader. Okay? So this is kind of important. It needs, if you don't have displace, it is not going to work. Okay? So you have to have that. And so kind of to explain like what we're looking at here, the shader group, as we talked about before, is kind of important because that's something that gets computed at render time. When you run the render command, essentially what Maya is doing is going to look at all the surface or the shader groups, and it's going to basically run whatever's connected to them. Okay, so this is the reason why we don't see Pixar Displace being activated in the viewport, because it's being run through the shader group. Okay, so you want to make sure that this is connected obviously to the displacement shader. If you click on this and then go to the shader group right here, you'll see that it is indeed connected. Displacement material, boom, right there. All right. What? In the attribute editor. So I just went over to the shader group right here. Yeah. So just verifying it is indeed there. Okay. All right. So in here, in this node, this is where we can kind of control the strength of a displacement. We have gain, which is basically how strong the displacement is going to be. And then we can put in a scalar, vector, or model displacement. We're going to be working with scalar displacements today, but vector displacements are also something you can work with. And you'll notice that the basically the channels here are 3 times more. We have 0, 0, 0 versus just 1, 0. So displacements are going to work like a bump map. They have an up and a down value. So they're going to push out or pull in material. And that's what a scalar displacement is for. Vector displacements push and pull, but they also can have underhangs and overhangs. So you can have, like, say, a model that you put the vector displacement map on, which is a specific displacement map, and it can create cliffs or caves or whatever. So it gives you a lot more directionality in the way that displacement map is being used. So that is going to be something that will be useful. Let's say if you are modeling up a character in ZBrush. Let's say a really super old man, okay? Super old men have like wrinkles, right? And they have like these overhangs and underhangs with like their neck folds and like cheeks and everything, and you know, they have all sorts of weird, crazy stuff. If you brought a model into Maya that had all of that detail, that'd be really high resolution, right? So that's what a vector displacement can give you, is it can be a map that's derived from that really high-res model that can give you all of that extra detail, that if we did that with a normal map, it will look fine from a distance, but it will fall apart as we get closer. So a vector displacement is going to give you just more of that, more accurate detail.
So basically, you can have like a primitive looking model of a person, and then with the displacements, you look like some kind of.
Yes, that's how you get photorealistic. Yeah, that's it. Are you giving up now? Just going to cover them eyes?
No, I'm just gonna start it.
Okay. I mean, that's how you do it. That's what you do. So, because it would be ridiculous to try to bring in a 30 million poly model.
Right.
It's just not going to work. So that's what they'll do. So anyway, we're going to be working with scalars. So for the displace, let's go ahead and tag in our Pixar Displace Transform 1. And right here, we have what's called result F. I'm going to go and take that and drop that onto my displace scalar. Okay? Let me hook this down here. And then we can go ahead and start putting in some images. So I'm going to go ahead and get a Pixar Voronoi, which is a basically just a Pixar noise. So we can change stuff on it. So we'll change the frequency to 15. Maybe it only goes up to 10 then. We'll stick with 10. It'll work for what I want. And then this Voronoi is going to go into the scalar displacement. Now, if I go and take this and drag it over to scalar, you'll see it connects into displace scalar. Let's go ahead and render it. Okay. So we're getting nothing. Actually, it is, let's make sure nothing came through. Yeah. Okay, so we got nothing. Let's go ahead and make sure we have something to render. And this is probably going to happen to you guys because what's going to happen is the displacement is basically just blowing up everything. So it's not even in the frame anymore. So we'll need to scale it down in order to be able to see it. So.
Did you select the plane at the bottom to just put that in?
I'm actually duplicating the plane just to kind of get an idea of like where the plane was starting. So if I go ahead and render it again. Let's see. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and mess with the displacement so we can actually see what we're doing. All right. So the displacement, we can control how much is actually displacing through the gain on here, and then also a transform on here as well. So let's go ahead and play around with the displacement height. Actually, let's take this guy out of the equation. We'll bring him back in a second, because we can kind of fine tune some stuff right here. So let's go ahead and render this out real quick. Okay. So once, since that's not going to do, we're going to turn the gain down by half. Once it finishes rendering. Give it a second. You will notice that when you're using displacements, it does take a little bit longer to render the image. There we go. Now, we do have that gray plane that was down here before, but we don't see a blue plane, right? So where the hell did the blue plane go? I don't think so. I think it's actually on top of it. But let's double check that. So, no, it's right here. So what happens is it's probably bumping it up so much that it's actually outside of the camera frame. So let's... It's displacing it. It's moving it up physically. That's what I'm, yeah, that's what I'm, it's usually what happens. So you have to kind of bring it back down. So let me render it again. Okay. There, let's try this again. I'm just going to put that shader back on. Back on there. And then I'm going to go back into Displace, go to 0.5, go down to 0.25. There we go, now we can see it. All right, so there are some kind of graphical glitches you're seeing here where it's kind of like breaking up. A couple things we can do to try to help that is if we hit 3, we can kind of smooth out the mesh a little bit and see if that resolves. Okay. Not really, nothing. Nothing we can do is we can give it more subdivisions to actually render this new topology, this new geometry. So what I can do is go in and go to Mesh, Smooth, and let's give it 5 subdivisions. It's going to give us a bunch of faces. And so it's going to take that and render this new topology with those faces. There we go. I would not always recommend going with 5. Probably just start off with 2, maybe go up to 3, and then see kind of where it starts looking a little bit better and you're not getting as much tearing. But there you go. Displacement's working. Kind of cool, huh? And it's not too terribly complicated to get it running. It's kind of interesting to kind of fine-tune it to get it to where you want it to be, but to get it running, it's actually kind of neat, and it's pretty easy. Right, Shelby? Shelby's your private tutor for all of this. She knows everything about displacements. You're like, oh, God.
So how do you get an image to displace?
Okay. So what we can do is we can go in, take the Voronoi, and just replace it with a texture. Okay. And so this is going to be where we put the file in.
This would be the, you sound like a tip or like the displacement texture.
Yeah, it's going to be a height map. I mean, you can use technically like any image really, but it's, yeah. Like if you just honestly Google like mountain height map, you get like all sorts of crazy stuff.
Okay, sorry, and I didn't hear Ricardo's question. So right now you said you replaced the burrow noise with Pixar texture, and that's to achieve what?
So he was asking me how can we put a texture in there or put an image, and so I was just explaining to him that we can do that using the Pixar texture. Yeah. So these are all height maps.
It's gonna be black and white, just like.
Yeah, positive and negative values. You could even paint your own if you wanted to. Let's see. C drive. Bryson. Displacement. All right, so I got this one. This is gonna be kind of weird. Let's see how this works. Actually, did I even connect it? Nope, I didn't connect it, so it's not actually gonna do anything. All right, so let's go and connect it in. So result RGB. So you see I'm actually going to try to bring it in here, but that's not wanting to connect. The reason why is because you have a red, green, blue channels that are coming out of the texture map. So what we need to do is actually convert this to a grayscale image using a PXR2 float node right here. And that's going to give us the result F value that we actually need to plug into the displacement scalar. So Pixar texture, result RGB into the input, result F for the output, and that will allow us to replace the displacement scalar. Okay? It kind of works. Okay. It does look like a maze. It's the RenderMan runner. There we go. Did not expect it to look good on the first try. Not expecting that. Usually it looks like not good. So that's good to see. Anyway, that's pretty cool. Mountain. Yeah. How did I do what? I'm just using a texture node. So the texture node, it needs to be plugged in through a 2-float node. And so the 2-float takes the RGB channels, the red, green, blue, and converts it to a grayscale output. And so we got the input RGB going to the output F, which then gets plugged into displacement scalar. Got it? Okay.
How can you affect the height of the mountain?
Yes. So we could go into displacement, change the gain, bring it back up. Bigger mountain. Now at a certain point it's going to look like garbage. But that was just with the gain.
Okay.
If you go and add in that, where did you go? The transform node right here, and plug that in between. This gives you a little bit more control. So we'll take the result F, plug that into the displacement scalar right here. And then we'll take that result F and put that, not there. We'll put that under displacement scalar. Okay, so this is kind of running interference. And so this has a couple extra controls. So we can actually change the displacement height, so how tall it will go, and then also displacement depth. So if we have like black areas, how far down that is going to go, and then how far up it'll go. Okay.
What is the Pixar Displacement Transform plugged into?
It's going from the 2-float to the displace node right here. Let's kind of back this up. And let's add in dome light. Just get a little more light in here, 0.2. Trying to get that sphere in here to see what it's doing. It's probably going like nuts. There we go. Okay, so this is obviously it's just too much. Honestly, it just looks like garbage. So we can go in and use the displace gain here in conjunction with the transform and try to fine tune it a bit. So maybe we'll bring this down to maybe like a 0.5. So it looks a little bit better. And then we can go into the displacement transform and play with these values. So maybe we want the height to go a little bit higher. But then the low areas will stay the same. But maybe we want the displacement depth to go lower, but we want the height to stay the same. So we'll bring this to a 1. Maybe take this to a 2. So we'll see it kind of comes down a little bit more. And then maybe we can fine tune a little bit more. Maybe we'll do like a 0.5. And then like a 0.5 here. So this is a little bit more realistic, honestly, what we're probably seeing at this scale. If we wanted to add some more detail, we could go in and actually add, do a displacement layer, and actually layer in some other maps and other procedurals. So displacement scalar layer right here. And so I'm going to go ahead and take that, and we're going to plug this into the displacement scalar right here. And so this basically acts as a layered shader where we can layer multiple things on top of each other. Okay? So we can have a base layer that is going to be this Pixar texture right here. So we'll take the 2 float, and you'll see that we have a base layer here. We have layer 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we can just pop in whatever we want. So we'll do F, and that'll go into, let's do base layer displacement scalar right there. So that's kind of popped in and going. And then maybe we want the Vora noise right here to go into layer 1 displacement scalar. So now we got both of these kind of on top of each other. All right. With the Vora noise, let's just go ahead and render it and see what happens. Let's make sure this is turned on. You want to make sure layer 1 is enabled, otherwise it's not going to get activated. So if you ever want to turn any of these off, just uncheck them. So we're seeing something in between where the Vora noise is kind of like altering the height of the mountains in different areas. So it's kind of bumping it up and it's a little, maybe a little more hilly. Whereas just that map by itself, you know, we have just that image. You guys with me so far? Yeah. So maybe we would take that Vora noise and play with the scale of it a little bit. So we can go in and add a manifold. You done? Okay. So I'm going to do a manifold 2D right here. And that's going into the Vora noise. And then we could do a scale of, let's say, 5 and 5. And so that's going to take kind of that larger lumpiness that we're getting here and kind of like fine tuning it and bringing it down in scale or in size. So we got something that looks like that. Since the Voronoi is a procedural, we can also change things like the octaves or the frequency. So if I take the frequency from a 10 to a 3, and go ahead and re-render it, we'll get something completely different. Something like that. And these are keyable attributes. So if you wanted to animate this texture, that'd be how you would do it.
What did this do?
It just changed, basically just changed the way that the procedural is being shown. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can right click and set key for any of these. If you want to change, let's say, how the layer is being shown, you can change the blend mode for layer 1, 2, 3, whatever, from add to over, subtract, multiply, average, min, or max. So you have those options if you want to change it. So let's say if we do a multiply, I don't know what it's going to look like. Let's find out. That's what it looks like. So it's just blending the two images on top of each other, kind of like Photoshop. Hmm?
What do you know about coloring the displacement?
I mean, you can just add in a texture map if you want to. So if you did something in Photoshop, if you came in with, say, that height map, you could just take it into Photoshop and kind of color that height map and apply it. You can sometimes get, USGS might give you a color map that you can work with in the beginning. So something you can do with that. We can also do, I'm not 100% sure if this will work or not, but we do have a Pixar Dirt. This is kind of an interesting node here. Have I talked about the Pixar Dirt before? Okay, so if you're kind of caked with dirt, where are the places the dirt's going to kind of collect on you? In crevices. So the Pixar Dirt node is basically made for those type of occlusions, where they'll darken or color areas however you want based on an occlusion. So like wherever geometry comes close together. So this is kind of a really neat little thing we can add in. So let's say we want to do a dirt color. We'll do blue, and then unoccluded areas are red. Okay. I'm not 100% sure this will work, but we'll see. Because I'm used to this like on active geometry and not displacements. But we'll try it. So I'm going to go ahead and take this. We will drag it over to color. See what happens. So the idea is wherever the geometry gets a little bit closer together, it probably will change the color to, yeah, okay. There you go. Yeah, that kind of works. It'll change the color wherever the geometry kind of pinches, giving you variability in the color, which is, kind of cool.
You can do like multiples of these, like red, blue, yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, for this, it's only two colors, one for occluded and one for unoccluded. But if you wanted to do, let's say, a layer shader, or a layer texture, I guess I should say, Pixar. You can use this material to layer in multiple color maps. So it's the same thing as the displacement shader, just with color maps. Just nifty.
Can you explain occlusion again? Like, what does that mean?
So it's basically wherever two pieces of geometry come close. So like if you just hold your hand up, where the natural places that you're getting shadow are is basically occlusions. So it's just the dark areas. That's all it is. So I used to do, like when I was using Mental Ray, I used to do ambient occlusion passes when I would render out my scenes. And so those were basically passes where everything was white, and wherever geometry came together would give me dark areas. And so those are kind of like a detail pass. And so for me, the dirt shader is kind of a way to get that back, because there's not necessarily an option for that in Pixar or in RenderMan. So it's kind of an interesting use for it. Let's see. I wonder if we can kind of mess with the spread of this a little bit. Because we could maybe change it to, yeah, so let's do green maybe, like a little forest green. Maybe like a little natural rock color.
It's hard to tell from the render, but is it blending those as they get farther away, or is it just like a stark?
No, that's blending them. So you'll see like purple areas right here. That's kind of cool. All right, and of course, since we can also add in bumps and normal maps, we have that ability too if we wanted to add something else in. So maybe we'll add in another displacement layer. So why not use a noise? I'm going to use a noise texture. And so for this one, I'm going to go ahead and repeat it. This is a Maya texture that I'm using. I'm going to do 5 and 5 on the repeats. And I'm actually going to bring the contrast down quite a bit. I don't want like really like heavy whites and like black areas. Because I'm going to basically just try to get like a little bit of breakup on the surface. So we're going to add that in. So on layer 2, can't add that in. What node do I need in order to attach this? What? I can't hear. I'm just hearing mumblings. Someone shout it. Huh? There. Thank you. Sorry, everyone's like talking, so it's like I can't hear. Okay, so let's do another 2 float. Color.
Sorry, what you're plugging it into right now, that little bubble, like
This one.
called?
This?
Uh-huh.
Just the input channel. Call it the pluggy anything for all that matters. I mean, it's just the bubble, whatever. Okay. Go to layer 2, make sure that's enabled. Ooh.
It's the forest now.
It does kind of look like a forest. It's kind of interesting. There's like a national park, I think like in China or something, that has like these really like sharp, like razor sharp rocks that are,
Same something.
yeah, it kind of looks like that to me.
That sounds more like you said.
So clearly that's not going to work for us. So I'm going to go ahead and take the gain down. Let's do like a 0.1. I'm going to go into my noise right here. Let's change that repeat to 10 by 10. So I'm really just kind of wanting to break up the surface so it's not quite so smooth. Yes. There we go. That's cool. I like that. It's probably a little bit too much, but that's kind of neat. .05. Also note that we do have a mask channel in here, so if you wanted anything to run a mask, you have that option in there. So with the chrome ball that turned into rust, that's one of the things is I put a fractal into that mask channel and then animated the movement of that fractal. Any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
Why is the noise connected to the amount and not the scalar?
I'm sorry, what?
What? I was asking, like, the other layers are connected to, like, the layer scalar, but the noise is connected to the amount. Is there a difference?
Did I connect it to the amount?
Yeah.
Let me look.
Although it's just running through the amount. Like the little-
Yeah, I'm just changing the... No, it's all through Display Scalar.
No, like the little, like when you look at the little connector, it's just going behind it. That's what it
Oh.
looks like.
Yeah, we just got extra cable. It's just hanging down there. No worries.
Is there any way that at the end of this class, that you could maybe take a screenshot of that Hypershade, like, page thing?
Why would you need that? You can have a video. You can pause it whenever you want.
Oh, there's a video?
I'm recording a video right now.
You're wonderful.
I very much
Feel free to
appreciate
bring
the
me
video.
cookies whenever you want. I enjoy light and dark chocolate mixed. Peanut butter is always delicious. And no fruity things.
Tub of peanut butter.
I have a tub of peanut butter. I don't need another one.
You should upload that list to the Blackboard and just.
Ways to make your teacher happy.
They're just like, do you upload the file for reference as well? Probably already do that.
No,
No?
you don't need that.
That's
Yeah,
a secret
the video.
video.
You have the video. If you follow everything I do, you're good. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah? I'm on to you.
Look at all of this.
I know what you're thinking. Alright, anyway.
Just for this.
So, there's my
I suck.
forest. Anyway, so I guess, really, I mean, I could just sit here and just play with this stuff all day, but I feel like you guys probably get the gist of, like, how the displacement works, right? Okay. Do you have any questions at this point?
How long does it take? Oh,
120
120 frames?
frames. So you guys got about a week and a half to get this done. So yeah, this is a fun project. Usually classes tend to enjoy this one pretty much. So hope you guys do too. I want something interesting, play around with this. This has a lot of possibilities,
If
Don't just throw a map in here and just call it done. Like, actually, like, experiment with this. There is a really cool displacement tutorial on that actually I got basically did the rust off of that Small Robot Studio did, where he did a displacement. He did the displacement to create like peeling paint with like grit and like rust underneath it, which was really kind of neat to watch. And so I just watched that and kind of figured out what he was doing, and then figured he could just animate it, and it still works. But it was pretty cool. So
Yeah, it is very informative videos.
he makes good videos.
Yeah.
He really does. And I think actually he's kind of like in cahoots with Pixar, because if you go to Pixar's website, they totally like show off his videos. Yeah. But I don't think he's like a professional animator. I think he does like game design stuff. So he's just kind of playing around with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you show for the video exactly where on the USGS website have the textures? Because I'm there and I don't see them.
Oh, it's been years since I've looked at it. I just remember you could go to it at some point. I think you had to put in like an order or something like that, and they're free, but like you have to, set up like the parameters and stuff where you go to. Yeah, I don't remember where it is exactly, but it's been done. I have done it. I just don't remember where. Yeah.
Like lastly,